everyone who has been successful, I'm sure, has gone through something pretty good.
She's checked into rehab multiple times to seek help for burnout, depression, and anxiety.
Have faith that on the other side of your pain is something
day
better.
and feeling sad and going on stage is something that is very hard to describe.
When my anxiety is high, it feels like an absolute inability to make decisions.
What if you just simply took your pain and transformed it into your purpose? What if you simply took the lessons you learned from this experience and used it to your advantage?
That example of someone talking to their 8-year-old self. If you could talk to 8-year-old Carlo, what would you say to him?
And my mother and my father are downstairs. And I'm in my bedroom. And I have this gun against my head.
Before we get to this episode, I just wanted to thank each one of you who has chosen to watch one of these videos and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me. But we have some work to do. Over 78% of those who are watching these videos are not subscribing to my channel. The more subscribers that I get, the more this channel grows. The more this channel grows, the bigger the guests get, the more inspirational the stories get, and the more people just like you who are watching are going to be inspired and helped. So, if you are enjoying these videos, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you and enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Barbells and Bourbon podcast, the podcast that allows real people to tell real stories. I am your big, bald, bearded, barbell lifting, bourbon drinking son of a bitch, Shaun. And joining me today is Carlo Taormina. Did I pronounce that right?
That was a pretty good pronunciation.
Tried to give it a little
Had some spice in it. Yeah.
Dude, welcome to our home.
I am glad to be here. This is insane. This is a nice studio.
Thank you. So you're the guest of many firsts for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You are the first guest that had to get on a plane to come here. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're the first guest that actually reached out to me and asked to come on here. Mm-hmm. Usually I have to hunt for my guests, but you reached out to me.
Yeah.
Which is a first.
I like what you're doing. And I want to drink some of your bourbon.
You're using me.
That's the only reason.
You came a long way to
I got
drink
the flight,
bourbon.
I got the hotel, I got the car just so I can get in your bar.
I feel used, but I'm okay with it. But I mean, to be honest, I was surprised to see you pull in my driveway. I have a lot of bad experiences and heard of a lot of bad experiences with like Facebook Marketplace and back in the Craigslist days of people just not showing up. Mm-hmm. And when I saw you pull in, I mean, we talked on the phone. You were a real person, but it was just like almost like too good to be true that you wanted to come here because I'm a new podcast. And the fact that you wanted to fly here to sit right there is super cool. So thank you.
Of course, man. Of course. You know, I'm all for new opportunities. You know, I want to spread my wings, do more things. I'm building, I'm growing like rapid right now, and it's awesome. And I just wanted to come here because I saw everything you got going on here, the topics you guys talk about, and I thought it was really interesting. And I took my shot, and it paid off.
Here you are. So we'll get into what you do and what you want to kind of get out there and spread your wings about. But first, you got to be thirsty, man.
I'm pretty
parched. You came
parched.
a long way.
I'm pretty parched. They didn't give me pretzels or anything on the plane.
That's bullshit.
If you saw the plane, dude, I can show you a picture of that plane. It was legit a paper airplane.
Oh.
Like, there was no takeoff. The dude just fucking threw us.
Well, you made it in one piece. We were talking before we kind of started rolling here that you seem kind of intimidated by all the selection.
Yeah.
Is there anything that stands out, or do you want me to kind of guide you?
I want you to guide me like a shaman in Peru, in Machu Picchu.
Oh.
I want you to kind of like just show me the way.
Okay. Well, there's not going to be any like glowing light moving over the bottle of choice. I want to mix it up a little bit because I'll oftentimes recommend kind of the same starter bourbon for those who haven't drank bourbon much or know nothing about it. But I want to kind of work my way around my selection and get a little creative. So let's go with the Knob Creek 12.
Okay.
So this is unopened. So I'm opening this for you,
Oh, wow.
buddy.
I feel special.
You are special. So Knob Creek is a very popular bourbon distiller.
Ooh,
That's a good
next
one.
to the mic, yeah.
The 12 indicates it's been aged for 12 years. Can you imagine this has been sitting or was sitting in a barrel for 12 years untouched?
Must have been lonely.
Very lonely. Let's give it some attention. The longer the age, typically the more dynamic, I guess is the right word, the taste is and the nose is. It takes on more of the oak characteristics and the spices and everything else from sitting in that oak barrel for so long.
Is it so? Okay, because my family, so we're Italian, so we make wine every once in a while. I mean, not anymore, but when we did, we would use like whiskey barrels, bourbon barrels, whatever like that. I guess that was like just part of the process. You would never use a new barrel, if I'm not mistaken. So with Scotch, whiskey, bourbon, anything like that, it's always new barrels.
No. Well, okay. So it starts out in a new oak barrel. That's one of the criteria that makes a bourbon. But you can finish our bourbon. I do have a few finished bourbons here, like the Rabbit Hole Derringer. That's finished in sherry casks. Kind of the same thing as you were describing with the different wines and the different barrels. There's some that are finished in rum casks. So yeah, the finishing can be, it's transferred into a different barrel. So it takes on very unique characteristics.
I love how complex, unique, and artistic any experience like that is. Because like my buddy I told you about when we went to that speakeasy, he was like, okay, so here you're going to have these like oaky vanilla notes. I'm like, what? It just smells like alcohol to me. But like I appreciate the sophistication to it, like the attention to detail. And the more, because I don't really drink that much, as I told you, but like the more I start to kind of wet my palate, so to speak, I kind of hint on these things. Yes. So for example, I'll probably drink wine and beer mostly, and I can tell, okay, this is a particular wine that has this type of characteristic. Or because my fiance, she also does work like part-time at a brewery. So sometimes she'll just like get some stuff off the low-fill shelf. Yeah. They're either free or discounted, and she'll bring it home. And I can tell like, okay, this is different than this. Like I used to think all beer tasted the same. Yeah. Just like anything like this tasted the exact same. All wine was the same. Yeah. But now I'm kind of like getting wiser. You know what I mean?
You're appreciating it a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm no longer like a high school kid drinking alcohol.
Natty Light. Everything tastes like icy light. So I want you to smell this. I know you already kind of like snuck a whiff. Do you smell anything other than alcohol?
I'm not to say this just because my friend said this and to like predetermine the outcome, but I do smell a little bit of like a mixture of spice and vanilla. Yeah, I don't know like what type of spice I'm hinting at there, but
that's
like,
okay. A lot of Knob Creeks have like a baking spice note to it. The vanilla, caramel, butterscotch, that's all kind of characteristic of Knob Creek, especially something that's aged 12 years. So, cheers, my friend. Well, thanks for coming.
Of course, to an awesome podcast episode.
So you were on a plane not too long ago. You landed 2.5 hours ago. If there was someone sitting next to you on the plane and they asked you what you do, how would you respond to them?
Yeah. I would say I am a high performance / life coach and a keynote speaker. And I help high achieving individuals overcome some mental setbacks that prevents them from living at their true potential, perform at the highest level, whether it be like in their business or in their personal life. Because a lot of people deal with like limiting beliefs, self-doubts, lack of motivation, hopelessness. That's a lot of stuff I used to deal with. And I just help them transform their mindset. What I learned and the continuous things I still learn about human psychology on how they can really unleash their true warrior, their true potential, so that way they can perform at the highest level, whether it be in their personal life and in their business.
Yeah. And you cater mainly towards men?
Yeah.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. How old are you?
27.
Oh my God. I hate you. Well, I'm 45.
Dude, when I walked in your house, I was like, this dude's like 32. Like, like,
Nope.
I would not have believed you were 45.
Well, I'm 45. So the reason I'm asking is we're from an entirely different generation.
Mm-hmm.
When I went through school, middle school, high school, there was no focus, no education on mental health whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like I don't want to say a stigma, but it was just not discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was really nowhere to turn either
Mm-hmm.
back in my generation. How do you think mental health has been exposed to the world now compared to the past? I
feel it is something that is continuously growing. And a perfect example is I actually it's so funny you mentioned that, because I'm actually going back to my old high school to do 3 different keynotes for 3 different classes. I wish it was like a whole school assembly, but it's like end of the year. And I don't think they're doing that. So I'm doing 3 individual keynotes for 3 different classes. Back in when I was going to school, like that didn't really exist. Like we would have maybe a career counselor coming in and say, oh, what do you want to do? We would have maybe somebody come in and do an assembly. It's like, love yourself, looks don't really matter that much. We had something like that, but like when it came to mental health and like people who are suffering from depression, people who feel hopeless, they don't know how to like legit cope with the thoughts in their head, that was kind of non-existent. And no one really talked about it, especially as guys, and I don't think this is something that has really gone away. I think right now it's something that's kind of being unraveled a little bit by little bit as time progresses. But like as men, it's like, suck it up, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, keep going. Like, don't cry. Like, and that's just how it was for us at the same time. So right now, I think as every year kind of goes on, and I think this next generation, they're more open, more accepting, and they're open more. They're willing to be vulnerable to not only express themselves, but to spread the message on, hey, mental health, let's break the stigma. Let's help people. Like you're not crazy. Yeah. Your story is valid because, hey, I deal with it too. So I think it's something that is continuously growing. I just think it still needs some work to do because there are still people out there who were raised, some men specifically, who are raised thinking it is weakness to show emotion. It is weakness to show any type of vulnerability because you got to be the man, you got to be the protector, you got to be the provider, you got to be this, and this. Where if you show any type of emotion to us, it seems as if it's a weakness. You know what I mean? So it's come a long way. Don't get me wrong, it has, but I think it still has some ways to go. Yeah, I do agree. It has come a long way. I keep thinking back to when I was in school. I never really had anywhere to turn. I struggled a little bit, and maybe we'll get into that. But, you didn't talk to your guy friends about it because you're a wuss, like you said, pick yourself up, deal with it, be a man, don't cry. There was the guidance counselor at school, which I think was more catered towards what's your career path? What classes should you take? Not how you feel. Tell me how you feel. I wouldn't have gone to them with a problem like that. So yeah, you did a lot of bottling things up. And when you bottle things up for so long, you explode. And really bad things can happen. And I know you've posted about, some bad outcomes of people that have been suffering for long periods of time and had no way out and, and their life sometimes. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. So, resources like you, for instance, that are able to help the men out there that are struggling is very important. And it's nice to see that has been sort of brought to the forefront now versus what it has in the past, especially in my experience when there was nowhere to turn. You were medicated. Oh, you're depressed? Take this pill. Oh, you don't have any energy? Here's this pill. I think there's still some of that. No, yeah, there is. But I think the therapy aspect has been more acceptable. Do you agree? I do agree. And it's so funny you say that because I am a huge advocate for therapy. I think everyone should do therapy, just not therapy is not only for people who deal with mental health issues. It's like legit. If you just want to be better, if you just want to grow, like get a therapist, get a coach, get a mentor. Like I think those are kind of within the same realm. It's just you want to improve yourself. That's all about self-improvement and personal development. So it's not just like, it's like the same thing of going to a doctor. You don't only go to a doctor when you broke your arm. You go to a doctor for a checkup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, I think
maintenance.
Exactly. I think it should be looked at the exact same way.
Yeah. Okay. So being that this is what you do and this is what your focus and your passion is, typically there has been something that brings you to this point. All the guests I've had on are sitting in that chair with a story that brought them here. Mm-hmm. There's a clear path to that. I want you to, let's flash back a little bit and take me back to young Carlo and what created who's sitting here today.
Yeah, of course. So I remember when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was help people. You know, I remember going to my mom saying like, hey, I want to help people. I want to, you know, leave my mark on the world. I want to be in the history books. I want my great grandkids to read about me and say, hey, you know, my relative did that. You know, I've always wanted to be on par with like the Da Vinci's, the, you know, like the big important people that everyone knows about, even though they don't know them, like personally, they don't know their story. Everyone knows Da Vinci. And for some reason, I've always wanted that status, but not for status sake. I wanted it because I wanted to help people. I just didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. So as I'm kind of getting older, you know, I'm a teenager and I'm 18 years old, I fall in love with fitness. You know, it's like become part of my identity. And thank God I was blessed with fast metabolism because, dude, I can eat. Like, I would eat like, okay, so my family owns an Italian restaurant. Like, that's just how, like, when my dad came to this country, that's like his thing. So he built a restaurant. And so we were raised in a restaurant. And I would eat like large pizzas with ease and like still be hungry. So thank God I had a fast metabolism because I've always been like the thin guy.
Yeah.
So when I realized how crappy I was eating, I was like, oh, this is not good. So I kind of stumbled on fitness. I really loved it. I started learning about nutrition, about proper exercise, and I just got obsessed. And all I would do was research fitness, bodybuilding. You know, I fell in love with like the golden era of bodybuilding with like Arnold, Lou Ferrigno, you know, all these people. Not that I'm actually a bodybuilder, but like I just fell in love with it.
Just the lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I changed that lifestyle. I became super healthy. You know, I don't really eat really crappy foods. You know, don't get me wrong, I'll eat a whole box of Oreos, no problem. But like, it's limited.
Yeah.
You know, so I fell in love with fitness, and then I always knew in the back of my head I wanted to help people. So I kind of married the idea of fitness and being kind of like a personal trainer so I can help people with their health goals, and let's do that. So I got my personal trainer certificate, and I knew I didn't want to be a personal trainer like in a gym for long. I knew that was like a starting point, and I wanted to be an online coach because I knew that was an industry that's continuously growing
and scalable
yeah. And I think was much more efficient, which ironically, when this process was pretty early on, I was then in my early 20s and COVID happened. And I was like, okay, this is the perfect time. You know, I was working in the gym for like a very short amount of time, and the gym's closed. So I opened up my own online personal training business, and I was going, you know, balls to the wall. Like I was trying everything. I hired a coach, you know, I researched, you know, everything on how to be a successful entrepreneur, because I've always had this like entrepreneurial gene in me, because for my dad being an 18, 19-year-old kid, not knowing a lick of English, coming to America and building himself up and growing a successful business to help him and support his family. It's something I've always wanted, you know, and of course I wanted to make my mark on the world.
Sure.
So I'm trying to be a personal trainer, and it's so funny because I feel like I've had this feeling my entire life, but I never really realized it until after I broke free from depression. Was I needed this need for significance. So I told myself, like, the first time I even had a goal, right? Which was like, oh, I'm going to get the six pack. When I start doing fitness, I'm going to get the six pack. I'm going to look jacked. Like, I'm going to build this business. I'm going to make a bunch of money. And I like told myself, if I can accomplish these things, then that means I could do anything. Then nothing is impossible. So I needed this proof to show me that I could do anything. What I didn't realize was that subconsciously, this was a need for significance, that it told myself I wasn't good enough yet until I get these things. And then I started to learn like years later that I was really just needing this external validation to quote unquote prove to myself I was good enough. And what's so funny is that every day that passed that I didn't have that, every day that passed that reflected externally that I wasn't this high achiever, entrepreneur, high performer, it took a chip at me, at like the identity I had for myself, because it wasn't being reflected externally. So I kind of carry that with me throughout my entire life, honestly, because anything I would set my mind to and I didn't achieve it yet, it kind of took a toll on me. And I was kind of carrying that and I was bottling it in pretty much for years, and then when I became a personal trainer, got the online business, and I'm still having these thoughts, I noticed I was getting these depressive symptoms kind of early on, and they were progressing until when I kind of finally snapped. Because I remember at the time, I was a manager of a gym. And one of my best buddies now, the guy I told you who I went to the speakeasy with, he's one of my best friends, and I met him at the gym. And I remember one day we were just chilling, and he was like watching one of these Twitch streamers because he likes the video game stuff. And I was getting so angry because I was like, I'm working my ass off trying to build something for myself. My dad came to this country with nothing and he built something of himself. And I, had this work ethic instilled in me since I was like 12 years old. And I don't know what I have to do to be successful. And I see these like 12-year-olds on TikTok and Instagram and stuff dancing and making all this money, not having to do a thing. Like there's this new girl on YouTube who I'm trying to learn from, right? I forgot her name, but she's like an 18-year-old YouTube sensation now. Yeah. And she's making all this money. At the time, I didn't know who she was because she wasn't relevant. But people like that. And I was getting really angry and really jealous that these people who legit didn't have to work at all, they never understood what a job was. And they created videos, they created content. And like,
that's not work.
And now I know it's work now
it is.
But like it would make me mad.
Yeah.
And again, I was just balling that up. All to at which point there was what I like to call my hell week, where I felt like everything that could go wrong did go wrong in 1 week. So at the time, like I mentioned, I was a manager at the gym. And this is right before Christmas, right before my birthday. I got fired from this job. And then at that time, I was seeing this girl who I thought was the one. She was telling me she loved me, wanted to have kids, wanted to get married. And she was like head over heels. And it was so funny because I know my character and I know that I'm a very loving person, very accepting person. So once you're in my circle, you're good. And I was weary of this. So I told myself, don't go in so hard. But then as the relationship developed and she was telling me these things, I was like, oh, okay, this is the real deal. Yeah. So I was heavily invested in this relationship.
Letting your guard down a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then one day she just calls me. She's like, hey, I want to break up. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
What's his name?
Right? And then to add insult to injury, I went through a very serious injury. I had a herniated disc in my L5S1 vertebrae in my back. So excruciatingly painful, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It was so bad to a point where I couldn't walk. So the last thing you want is to lay in bed and not do anything but be alone with your thoughts. And then on top of that, like I mentioned, I had my own online personal training business, but it was doing terribly. Like, it was doing terrible. I was losing so much money. I was spending so much more money than I was making. I was going into debt. And all of this was circling around me within 1 week. And then you add on to the things that I was kind of already bottling up prior to that. So I kind of took a step back and looked at the bigger picture, like as if I was in this art gallery and I wanted to see the whole picture. I just took a step back and looked at this picture, which was my life. And I was like, what the hell happened? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Why me? And I started asking all these questions. And then I was just like, what's the point of trying so hard to make something of myself when nothing works? You know, I felt like the universe was out to get me. No matter what I tried, I would always fail. I legit felt like a failure. And that was my biggest fear, was to be a failure. And to have that fear realized, I didn't know how to react and respond. And especially when all these things happened to me in a week. So I literally broke down and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm choosing not to do this anymore because what's the point? So I literally laid in bed every day for a year in 2021 because I said, screw it. I'm done. I quit. Nothing's ever going to work. It was so bad, man. Like, I called myself a professional loser. And I legit told myself if losing was an Olympic sport, I would be a gold medalist. And the self-hatred just grew and it grew. And it was so bad to a point where I refused to look in the mirror at my own reflection because I hated the person I saw.
Wow.
And that's not like a phrase. That's like legit. I would not look at myself. And I would do anything to not think. You know, I would wish and pray I could just fall asleep and stay asleep nonstop. But unfortunately, when I was dealing with this clinical depression, I couldn't sleep. Like, I had terrible insomnia. When I would go to sleep, I had no problem going to sleep, but I would always wake up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and just stay up the entire night and be alone with my thoughts. I would try to drown myself out with music, with video games, with YouTube videos, with movies to escape. But eventually it kind of wore off. And I would even get triggered by it because I would see these like young kid actors, right? Like these stupid 6-year-olds, like they're making all this money. They didn't have to do anything. You know, all these musicians, I would see like the Billie Eilishes of the world or like the Post Malones who legit like didn't have to do much, or at least that's how I saw it.
So you were in a victim mentality.
I was.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm the victim. I want to ask you one question, though.
Yeah.
I think there's a hard separation between having a goal and having an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
The definition is probably very similar, but the impact that has on the person if that doesn't get accomplished is very different. Do you agree with that?
100%.
You set a goal. If you don't meet that goal, you either give yourself more time or maybe just slightly change the goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end of the world. If you set an expectation and you don't meet that, you are a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like you set expectations your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably got you into the position that you were in because all of those expectations that you had of yourself kept crumbling, kept getting pulled away.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had no purpose anymore. And you found yourself in a year-long depression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And it was so funny, now that you mentioned that, is I was so attached to the outcome versus the person I was supposed to become throughout the process, and I didn't realize that at the time. And it's so funny because, you know, later on in my like late teens, early 20s, my brother and I got so heavily involved in personal development. You know, we wanted to grow. And it's so funny because at the time, that didn't click, you know, because I was so attached to that expectation or the outcome of this goal, you know, the financial freedom everyone talks about, you know, not working the 9-to-5 and being your own boss. And that's something I've always wanted, but of course I wanted to help people. Now, at the time, it wasn't a question of if, but when I was going to take my own life, because I kind of had it at that point. You know, I felt like nothing was working. I was literally Googling and YouTubing how to overcome depression. I was reading books, reading articles, like nothing was working. I just was like a vegetable. I didn't eat. I lost like 13 pounds. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy, but like, imagine me 13 pounds lighter. I did therapy, you know, and like I said, I think therapy is great. At the time, it just didn't help me.
Do you think it's because you didn't allow it to help you? Is that such a thing?
I think so, and partially because I was not in the proper state to accept the help. Because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe anything would work.
I think with therapy, not to cut you off.
No, you're good.
They give you tools.
Mm-hmm.
You have to use them. It's not a magic wand that the wave over you and say you're cured. They give you tools on how to cope and how to grow and how to learn, how to improve. You need to implement that. There's actually like homework that you have to do when you see a therapist. You have to actually practice and exercise these skills or you cannot get better, right?
100%. And it's so funny you said that because the therapist I was seeing at the time, and she's a lovely lady. And it's so funny when I did get better, spoiler alert, I did get better, but it's so funny. Because we used to do Zoom and she was in Jersey and I'm in Virginia. Well, part of my family lives in Jersey and they're like really close. So I actually went to see her. But anyway, that's another story. But when I was in that state, right, I think partially why therapy didn't work, why all these books and videos didn't work was I didn't believe that it would because I was so convinced nothing would work ever. Like, this is my destiny. I am a loser. I legit thought that in my past life, I was like some evil person that now I'm paying for it now and I deserve it.
Reincarnated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or I thought, hey, in this human experience, maybe in this past life, I was, rich, famous. I had an awesome life. I didn't have any problems. And now this life, I probably need to experience suffering. And like, those are the things I was thinking of
So
at
you
the
were
time.
trying to reason with every possible
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, literally. I was like, why is this happening? So again, like therapy didn't work and I just didn't believe nothing would work. So I would do the exercises and my therapist would tell me at the time, but part of me was just like, I don't know if this is going to work. I did it because I wanted to try. But I remember my therapist at the time gave me this one specific exercise. And she was like, go around somewhere. It could be in your house, outside your house, take a walk, whatever. But take a picture of something that catches your eye and that has a meaning to you. And I remember I was in my kitchen, and this is like a rare time I would leave my bedroom. I took a picture of my dog standing outside the door, he was in the door, like in the living room, but looking outside. I forgot what I said, what the meaning I thought the picture was. But I told my therapist at the time, this is what the picture means. And it was like a depressive meaning I gave it. But then my therapist was like, oh, that's interesting because I see this. And it was a completely different outlook and a positive one of that. And I was like, how does she see this? And it was just the way where I was focusing. I was seeing doom and gloom every day. So therefore, that's what I was getting. But she was seeing new opportunities, new avenues, being creative because she wasn't in that space that I was in. So she was seeing all these things I couldn't see. So I would definitely say that I didn't believe I would get better, and B, that I was just not in the proper place. So I remember I had kind of like this plan, I had everything set up. I knew what I was going to do. I wanted to clock out early. So I tried a couple of times. I didn't like actually try, but I had the note. And it was interesting, not to make it comical, but like I had revisions to my note. Like I wrote one, oh, this isn't good enough. So then I wrote another, and then I wrote another. So I had like 2 rough drafts of my note before I like had a final draft of, my goodbye note. And I had it, and I went to get my gun, and I put it in, I pointed it where I was going to do it. And I was so anxious. I had so much fear, so much anxiety boil up. I was like, this is it. And it was clear as day. And I just didn't want the pain anymore. I didn't want it. I thought that was the only option. So I'm there, like in my bedroom in my cocoon. And mind you, at the time I lived with my family. I lived with my parents. And that's another reason why I felt jazzed, right? Because I'm in my 20s, I still live at home. And my mother and my father are downstairs. And I'm in my bedroom. And I had this gun against my head. And I'm like, here we go. And it was so bad. I had this giant panic attack. Like, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So I didn't. And then even that experience was like tacking on top of all the other stuff I was dealing with. Like, oh man, you couldn't even do it. You're such a X, Y, and Z. No. I said the nastiest things to myself you wouldn't believe. Like, you think Scarface had bad explicit content? Wait till, like, you should have seen me. You should have been a fly on the wall. And there was this disgust of myself. And since I couldn't do it, since I couldn't do that action that you can't take back, it was like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it, I'll do it the next day. Like, it'll happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. And it was like I was postponing it. So one day, my family was like, hey, let's go out to lunch. Let's do something. Let's do something different. Because I can only imagine what my family must have gone. And I knew what they were going through, but then again, like, I'm not in their shoes. But I can only imagine, like, the positions that my father was in, my mom, my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, because they all cared for me and they all saw me in the state I was in. And I can only imagine what, like, they must be feeling of trying to help this person. And no matter what attempt I try, this person will not get better. So imagine how they must have felt.
So I want to get into that a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
So you're living at home for this year-long, hibernation. Mm-hmm. What is your family, what are they trying to do to help you? What are they saying to you? How are they reacting to the whole situation? Walk me through that.
Yeah, I would say it was a roller coaster of things. So my mom was actually the one who said, go to therapy, because I did not want to do therapy at first. Because it was, and especially for me, and again, as a guy, it was so hard to express how I was feeling because I didn't know how.
You're just sad, or you just feel like a failure. You can't add any more dynamics to it or
exactly.
context to it.
And I just remember feeling so crappy. Like, I remember after my hell week, I tried to get back on my feet. I had this other job at a gym. I was barely walking at the time, but I was still trying to hustle, trying to make something of myself. And I remember, like, when I wasn't working, I would call my mom and I would have panic attacks and I would cry constantly. I would say, Mom, I can't do this. Like, I don't know what's going on with me, what's wrong with me. I can't do this. And so eventually when I'm just laying in bed all the time, I remember texting my mom when I was upstairs and she was downstairs. I said, hey, can you please come to my room? So we both sat on my bed and I was like, it was so hard to tell my mom that, hey, Mom, I'm depressed and I want to kill myself. From her position of hearing her son say that must have broke her heart. I'm pretty sure it did. But for me to say it, it was so hard to do. And I always heard, oh, once you get it off your chest, you'll feel much better. Part of that is true, but at the time I didn't see it. I still felt like crap. I was like, why don't I feel better? I expressed myself. Why do I still...
You're waiting for that reward.
Yeah. I was like, why don't I feel different? I feel worse. And it continued. So as it continued, my mom was like, can you please do therapy for me? So I was like, Mom, do you know how hard it was for me to tell you how I'm feeling? Now you want me to tell a complete stranger? Eventually we went back and forth, but she talked me into it. And I said, okay, I will do it for you and I'll try. And I did it for a handful of months and it just didn't work. All right, for me, it didn't work. I didn't see a benefit in it. And I just said, I just want to stop. And my family was trying to do anything, let's go here, let's do this, come outside, just hang out with us outside. Oh, we're going to this restaurant, come here. Oh, we're going to a park, come with us. And then some days were a bit darker because they would get angry. They would say, you need to snap out of it. You need to just get better. Like, things could be worse. And they weren't saying that to piss me off. They weren't saying it. They were just saying it, I believe, out of anger because they didn't know what else to do. And I was just in this bubble and I couldn't get out. So they didn't know how else to react other than being angry, not at me, but at the situation.
Yeah. I don't want to say I've been in a similar situation, but I'm a parent of 3, and my youngest dealt with some pretty severe social anxiety for a few years going through middle school. And as a parent, you get frustrated because it's hard for you to understand what they're feeling. You just see the action. They don't want to go to school. You got to tear them out of the car to get them to go to school. You're only focused on what it's doing to you as a parent. And it's hard to see how they're feeling. And you ask them, why are you doing this? Why are you acting like this? Why are you feeling like this? Tell me how you're feeling. And they say, I don't know. Because I truly believe now that you don't know. You don't know what's causing it, and you don't know how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So as a parent, just again, it's not the same situation. I could see them being frustrated because to them, you leaving the house is going to make you better, and they're trying to help you. Mm-hmm. And you're almost refusing that help, which is frustrating. So yeah. I just wanted to interject that.
And it's really, I like that perspective because I didn't hear it, So I remember there was this one day where my family was like, hey, come out to lunch with us. And I said, no. Do you know how hard it is to leave bed? Now you want me to go to lunch with you? That's not in the cards. I'm not doing it. Eventually they talked me into it. They said, just come out to lunch. So I did. So I rode with my mom and I met up with my brother and sister. My dad was busy doing something. He wasn't there. But it was the most awkward lunch of my life. Like I was just sitting there eating my little salad in the booth and not talking to anybody, feeling like invisible. So towards the end of lunch, my brother was like, hey, come ride with me. So we do, and we're riding home. We park in the driveway. And this conversation was like the tipping point. It like put me on the path to finding my breakthrough. We sit in the car, and this conversation that was 10 minutes seemed as if it was an eternity. So my brother puts the car in park, and he's like, what can we do to make you better? Like, we're trying everything we can think of. We don't know. Like, how can we help you? And I said, there's nothing you can do. Stop it. I'm a failure. I'm a loser. I'm never going to make anything of myself. Like, quit because I already quit on myself. And then my brother was like, I would do anything for you. You're my brother. And I'm your brother. Would you do anything for me? And I said, of course I would. I didn't realize that was a trap because he was like, okay, I have a favor I need from you. I was like, damn, okay. Well, what is this favor you need? And he's like, I need you to do something different. Get out of here, leave, go on a trip, do something. And I was like, you want me to go on a trip? Do you know how hard it was to leave bed to go out to lunch with you? And now you want me to go on a trip? Like, no. And then the next thing he said literally shook me. And I was like, this thought process put me on that path to finding that breakthrough. And what he said was, what do you have to lose? And I let those words sink in. I let that question sink in. And this is like when it felt like time stood still, like somebody had the click remote and press pause, and I was lucid and everyone else was, frozen in time. And I thought to myself, I have nothing to lose. Like, I'm at rock bottom. I don't know what else to do. So what if I took one more shot? You know what I mean? What if I took a leap of faith and tried one more time? Because it was so weird, and I don't recommend anyone do this. But what gave me comfort at the time was saying, hey, if this last attempt doesn't work, I have a backup plan. I can still clock out. So as weird as it sounds, that was what brought me comfort. So as I'm processing his words, what do you have to lose? I remember thinking of two things. The first was I just kept saying to myself, I don't want to die. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to go. I don't want to die. And I just kept saying that over and over and over again. And I shifted my focus from the life I was living, the suffering, the victim mentality, feeling like a failure, all these limiting beliefs. I shifted my focus from that to the life I wanted, to being happy, the funny guy again, being an entrepreneur, successful. I just started focusing on the life I really wanted. And then the next thing that happened, and I don't know how this happened. I don't know how I imagined this, but I imagined I struck a matchbook, like a match from a matchbook, and I saw this tiny little flame. And this tiny little flame represented the real me. The Carlo who was funny, ambitious, the high performer, the entrepreneur, the guy who would take his shirt off his back to give to you if you were cold. And that little tiny flame, as small as it was, represented the real me, and it sat in my gut. And even though it was very small, I felt him down there. And the more I thought about him, it grew to at which point I felt like it kind of consumed me. And then I answered my brother. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then he was like all over the place. He was, oh my God, okay. Well, where do you want to go for this trip? And I was like, I don't know. And this was in November of 21. So it's in Virginia. It's a little cold, depending on, what you get. I was like, I don't know. Let's go somewhere warm. He's like, okay, well, where? Out of all the places, I thought the first thing that came to my mind, I was like, Florida. He's like, okay, perfect. When do you want to go? And I said, soon? He's like, okay. Do you want to go alone? Do you want to go with me? What's the deal? And I said, please come with me. I don't want to go alone because I don't know what I'm going to do. So he's like, okay, don't worry about a thing. I'll send you the details tonight. That was a Sunday. Our flight left on a Tuesday. So he picked West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, neither of us have heard of West Palm Beach.
It's a beautiful place.
It is a very beautiful place, but he picked it literally because it sounded sexy. Like we didn't know if it was on the East Coast, West Coast. We didn't know shit. So we're going, and I remember this feeling of immediate regret when we got to Florida. The first day was miserable. I was like, let's go back home. Let's go back to the hotel. I don't want to stay here. This was a bad idea. And I was miserable. And I remember towards the end of that night, we walked to the beach and we sat on this bench, like right before the sand part, right before the beach. And we were just sitting there under like the night stars. And he was just like, let's just stick it out. Let's just, we're not going back home. Let's see what happens. So then the next day happens. And it's the same stuff. I don't want to do anything. My brother's trying to rent bicycles, trying to rent jet ski. Let's do a fishing trip. And I was like, dude, I don't want to do that. Let's just lay in bed. So I remember we're sitting in front of this like restaurant, cafe or something like that. And we're sitting at this table outside. And we're having a conversation. And then he's just looking up for things to do. Like the most exciting thing we did was play Go Fish in the fucking park. Like we bought a deck of cards at like a pharmacy. We were just playing Go Fish. That's how exciting it got.
You went to Florida in November to play Go Fish.
That was the highlight of the trip. Like that's all I wanted to do. And he's just looking on his phone. He's like, okay, I booked us something to do. I'm not telling you. Just follow me. And in the state I was in, I was like getting really anxious. I was like, what did you do? Are we going to a club? Are we joining a cult? Like, what did you book? What did you do? He's like, just follow me and don't say a word. Don't ask any questions. Just follow me. So we're walking. And all of a sudden we're at the stoplight and we're about to cross. And as the light is red and I'm just kind of looking around, kind of passing time, I see in front of me, there is this West Palm Beach Convention Center. And I'm like, okay, I didn't really think anything of it. Think anything of it. But I see the sign in front of the building. And the sign said, Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within.
Oh, shit.
And again, my brother and I are very heavily in personal development. We loved Tony. We knew who he was. And I looked at my brother. I was like, he didn't say anything. I was like, you didn't. He's like, what? He didn't know he was down there. Again, he picked West Palm Beach out of randomness. We went at a random time, picked a random place, So we didn't know he was down there. He just legit looked what to do in West Palm Beach. And like the first thing that came up was like, oh, things that are current right now. Tony Robbins is here. And it was so ironic, coincidental. I think it was divine timing that this person that we definitely looked up to, we studied, was there. And he was having an event. So my brother booked tickets for this event. And I remember being in this event, and I'm not a spokesperson for Tony Robbins. Like, we're just fans of him. So I remember, and anyone who knows about Tony's, I don't know if you know his events, like there's legit, you're in a room of 10,000 people. Yeah. And I remember sitting in my seat amongst 10,000 people. And I had this like frozen in time moment again. And I was saying to myself, I was like, I hope this isn't like a concert or like a vacation experience where, oh, you might have some fun now, but when it's done, it's like, okay, back to reality, and you feel like crap again. So I was really skeptical and I didn't know what to make of it, but I am so glad I took a leap of faith. I took action and I did what was asked. From that experience, I found my happiness again. I found the real me again. I was in tears, crying like nonstop. And it was like I had this telepathic communication with the universe. It was like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you're going to help people. And I was like, oh shit, I want to help people just like the way I felt. People who know that their life is meant for more, who have these limiting beliefs, who feel hopeless, who don't see a way out, who want to achieve massive things, they might have achieved something material, but they feel like shit on the inside. I want to help these people. Mm-hmm. So like from that day on, I had this light bulb moment of what I'm going to do. So I transitioned my coaching from personal training to more so like mindset, high performance, life coaching type of stuff. And I started going gung-ho on that. And then I started speaking and it literally changed my life. Like from that one simple action, one decision, I'm so glad I went through all like thinking back on it now, I'm so glad I went through that experience. I'm so glad I went through depression, feeling suicidal. I wouldn't trade it for the world because I know what that feeling is like. And I knew that I grew from that experience and I learned. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't trade it for anything. And now I get to help people with my story, with my own learnings. I'm learning every single day, like reading books and continuously growing. Like I'm helping people. Like I never thought in a million years when I was a kid, I'm going to be a coach and speaker. Like I never thought that shit was ever possible.
Right. So I want to ask you two questions. When you found out that Tony Robbins was performing,
yeah,
did you think that maybe that was your glimmer of hope? Were you looking at that as a possible fix for you, or were you just curious?
At that time, I wasn't going into it thinking, oh, this is going to fix me. I was just going there for the ride. Because, I mean, I didn't buy the ticket. I was just there because my brother found it. And I was like, let's see what this is like. Okay. I wasn't going in with the intention of, okay, this is going to fix me. I was just saying, let's ride this wave and see what comes out.
Okay. And then the second question, this isn't like to put you on the spot, but when you're in such darkness that you were in, mm-hmm. do you feel like sometimes it's safer to be there because you don't have to worry about failing anymore or letting anybody down? It's almost like you're already at rock bottom. If I try to dig myself out and I fall back in, that's going to make me feel even worse. So it's best I just stay here.
Absolutely. That was my mindset, because I had two things going through my mind. One, I knew for a fact I was a failure, so nothing would ever work, so I would never try again. But then sometimes when like the real me inside of me was like begging, like, do something, I would get maybe a hint of inspiration, maybe a flicker. But then I would have these thoughts that said, I don't want to fail again.
Yeah, the act of trying is just even too scary because you might fail.
Exactly. I didn't want that feeling all over
Pile
again.
that back on.
Literally, exactly. Yeah. I didn't want that again.
Did you have friends? I don't want that to sound as maybe harsh as it did, but did you have any friends at this time that you could turn to or that were trying to be like, Carlo, dude, come out? Like,
it's funny that you say that because my entire life, I never really had a lot of friends. Like throughout school, I had a couple of friends, but like when I was in high school, dude, like I knew these people were not going to be my friends later on. So I like to call myself the middleman because obviously in school, you know this, there's like different groups of people and different cliques and they like to hang out with their certain tribe. Mm-hmm. I remember like being like, I had this like moment when I was in school standing outside of my body and being like, I don't fit with any of these people. Like school is school and that's it. I know I'm never going to see them again and that's it. And throughout my life, I have maybe had like, right now I have 3 friends. So, and I like that. I don't want a whole lot of friends. I have 3 awesome freaking friends that kind of live far away though. So like one friend lives in DC. That's about a couple hours from me. One person lives in another part of Virginia. That's not too bad. Another person lives another part of town.
Call their names out if you want to.
Andrew, Casey, Damien. You guys know where it's at. But like they're my best friends, but they have families. Some of them have kids. So I didn't want to impose. And at the same time, because I was a person who said, I don't want to harm you with my problems. So they didn't even know. And on top of that, I distanced myself even from my family. And again, my family is part of my inner circle too. Like when I was growing up, my friends were my brothers and sisters. Like we would always hang out. And that's just how it was because we were always so close. We have a great relationship. I just stopped communicating with everybody, with my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, friends. Like I didn't talk to anybody.
It's just easier that way.
Yeah, because I didn't want to A, give them my stuff, and B, I didn't want to talk about it. Like because I felt like I exhausted myself. And even when they were like, oh, we don't have to talk about that stuff, like I knew it was on the back of my mind anyway. And I didn't want to play a character, even though they knew they could probably see through it. But like I didn't want to pretend. I just said to myself, it's better for me to be in my own little corner and let you guys have your happy lives and just forget about me. I literally told my family that. I was like, just forget about me. Obviously, they couldn't do that because, I mean, it's like I'm part of the family. They can't. It's like impossible. But I just didn't want to bother anybody.
Yeah. So this was November 2021. I don't want to say you were healed. That's a cliche term. But that was the breaking point, the tipping point for you to get better. When did you meet your now fiance?
I met her in December of 22.
So a year later.
Yeah.
Okay. Does she know all of this?
Yeah, she does. And it's really funny because I've never been a fan of online dating. That's like, I feel like I'm an old soul, you know, but I tried it for like the second time. The first time I tried it, I got catfished. This was like years ago. I was like, okay, this shit is not for me. Like, this is not good. So I was like, let me try it again. And I found her, she found me, and then we just hit it off. And then we were talking. We talked for a while before we actually physically met. So we like met in December, but we didn't like physically meet until like early January. So it's still pretty relevant. But you know, in the first couple of dates, I didn't really tell her anything. Although I think at the time I was active on social media promoting what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure she stalked me on Instagram, and she saw what I was doing, so she knew my story, but it never came up in conversation because she didn't want to say anything, like to this new guy. Like she was waiting for me to say it. Yeah. So I remember this one time. This is when we like just started dating. We're going up to Baltimore to just hang out for the day. You know, she's from Maryland, so she knows some cool spots up there. And as we're driving, I'm telling her my story. And I am like in tears driving on the highway, like, so then this happened. And you know what I mean? And she couldn't have been more supportive. Like, And I had no problem being vulnerable, but at the time it was still pretty early of me being vulnerable and sharing my story.
Yeah.
So it was a little tender. And as I'm sharing it and being very vulnerable and very emotional, she was nothing but supportive. She was like, "Hey, I get it. Like, I wasn't there, and I don't know what that feeling is like, but I get it."
Yeah.
And she's always been there. She's always been supportive. And I'm not going to lie and say I've never had these feelings since. Like, these feelings have kind of come and go, and through the few years we've been dating, she's been very, very supportive, always behind me, always having my back, and just saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah.
And that shit hit hard. And I was like, wow, okay, she's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, to have that support system is everything. And it does feel good to be vulnerable, doesn't it? To be able to talk and not be judged. It's just freeing.
At first, it was so hard to do it. But now I find it liberating. And it's kind of funny because there's this buddy of mine who said this, and it really resonated with me because I knew it's obviously being vulnerable, liberating, but it is so liberating to the point as if it's like you're being naked and stripped because you're showing all of yourself, flaws and all.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because that's what connects most with people, and that's how people get the help is because they see somebody who is just like them. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one,"
Yeah.
And it's like, when you get burned or you have a scratch at first, it kind of hurts, but eventually it develops into like a callus. Like, obviously we go to the gym, we lift weights. At first, when we have calluses, it hurts a little bit, but eventually it grows to a thicker skin.
Yeah.
And that's just what it's been like.
Yeah. They say being vulnerable is a sign of weakness. I don't think there's any bigger sign of strength than being vulnerable and just exposing those weaknesses and those imperfections. That's not weak at all. I think true men, real men, even women, being transparent is courage. So say you're in a situation now, you used to handle failure not so well. So present day Carlo, say you have a goal or an expectation and you don't meet that. How do you handle that differently now than what you would have in the past?
It's so funny you say that because on my drive this morning, as I'm coming here, I was literally thinking about failure. And I was like, not only is it essential for success, but I love failure now. Of course, it doesn't feel good when you fail because like, oh shit, this didn't work. But like, I love it because it is an opportunity for me to grow.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that at the time because especially here in, I don't know if it's just Western culture, but how I experienced failure is I didn't want it. Like I was so afraid of making a mistake, whether it be in school, whether it be on the soccer field, playing sports, in business. I was so afraid to make a mistake. I didn't want to fail because I feel like that in itself is stigmatized because failure is bad. When in reality, failure is amazing. But I didn't see that at the time. So now how I look at it is, okay, great. If I failed, that's a good thing. I can learn something from this.
Yeah.
And what is it? Let me think about it. What is something different I can do next time? What's a different approach I can take? What's something I can learn? And I embrace failure. And I'm so glad that my biggest fear came alive just so I could experience it, overcome it, and be like, this isn't so bad. Like, of course, at the time it felt like shit. But like knowing what failure provides, game changer.
Yeah. You're going to be the 19th episode when this finally gets aired. I think over half of the episodes, this topic of failure, learning from your mistakes, you have to experience falling on your face to be able to grow. I think it's come up at least half of the episodes because this is a common theme in life, right? If you don't make a mistake, or let me reverse that. If you make a mistake and you don't learn from it, then you failed.
Mhm.
But if you learn just one little thing and improve your approach the next time, how can you fault that?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like what you were talking about on your drive in and how you view failure now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I see now how I see life is everything is happening for me, not to me. Everything is either working on me, for me, but either way, something is always working in my favor.
Yeah.
And that's how I always see everything now.
I was looking at some of your client testimonies that you have posted on your Instagram page of how you've helped them. What do you have to say to, a young man or an older man or someone who's dealing with the childhood Carlo who felt like there was no way out? What's just something that you can say to them to help them find their purpose?
I would say, there's always a way out. There's always a solution. Even if you don't see it right now, there is a way. Just because you are deep in the tunnel, but you're not far along yet to see the light at the end of it, doesn't mean that that light does not exist. So I would say, always there's a way out. Next, B, I would say, if you just take a leap of faith, try one more time, you are going to thank yourself. Because if I didn't try one more time, if I didn't take the leap of faith, I wouldn't be here talking to you today, drinking this delicious bourbon.
Which is gone.
It was that good.
Jeez.
And the next thing I would say is watch how you act, like your body language. Look how you because emotion, any emotion you feel is physical. Be self-aware. When you grow self-awareness of your body, of what you focus on, of the language you use, those are so important to how it's going to make you feel. And then eventually, once you start to develop all these things, you're going to realize that thoughts will equal feelings or emotions, and these feelings or emotions will equal behaviors. And once you kind of get a little self-awareness in you, and you start to realize, oh, this made me feel like this, therefore I did this in response. And once you kind of be like a scientist, essentially, and you start to realize what's going on behind the scenes or like inside your brain, you're going to be like, okay, I kind of know what to do next if something happens like this. You know what I mean? So the best piece of advice I can give somebody who's struggling is literally don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself grace, show yourself love, because there's so many beautiful things about you and about your life right now that you're not even seeing because you are so hyper-focused on all of your failures, your setbacks, the quote-unquote terrible person you think you are. If you simply reflect on everything beautiful that's going on right now and you step back into these moments, you give yourself one more shot, you can't go wrong. And that's probably the biggest thing I would tell someone.
That's what your therapist did for you, right? The picture of your dog looking out the window.
Yep, exactly.
You had a very negative vantage point of what that picture meant to you. So yeah, it's a mindset shift.
100%.
And I think the hardest thing or most frustrating thing about that is nobody can give that shift to you. That's up to you. But getting someone to actually initiate and execute that shift, that's another story.
Absolutely. You know, I think if people stop thinking about expectation, right? They detach themselves from outcome and they just get inside their heart. Like, when's the last time you held your hand on your heart and you felt it beating? You're like, this beats and I don't have to ask it to. It just does it. Tomorrow, I could wake up and it not beat, right? Or lack thereof, you wouldn't wake up because it would stop beating. But like, why can't you be happy? Why can't you be successful? Why can't you be X, Y, and Z? You know what I mean? If all of these other people can be what you want to be, what is stopping you from being this way? I'm no one special. Like, anyone successful that you look up to is no one special. Everyone who has been successful, I'm sure, has gone through something pretty dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What if you just simply took your pain and transformed it into your purpose? What if you simply took the lessons you learned from this experience and used it to your advantage? What if you just gave yourself one more chance? What if you loved yourself a little bit? You know, gave yourself a little bit of love, gave yourself a little bit of grace. Because that's something I didn't do, and I knew what it did to me. But once you start reflecting on everything beautiful, like, I remember this one thing, and this really struck a chord with me, is I remember seeing this one video of this guy, and he was like another therapist or coach, and he was saying that he was helping a client, and he was saying to his client, what if you took a picture out of your wallet, and that picture was a younger version of yourself, like an 8-year-old version of yourself, and you said all the same things to yourself right now, but you said to this little boy or this little girl.
Yeah.
And then the person was like, oh, I can't do that. That's too harsh. Like, it's a little kid. It's like, you are the kid. You are the person. You know, and I feel like if we treat others, like, I'm sure you would help your children, your spouse, your friends. If they needed something, you would drop everything at the drop of a hat to help them, right? Yeah. But it's like, we don't do that for ourselves. What if we gave ourselves a little bit of grace, give ourselves a little bit of love, forgive ourselves, right? I feel like life would be so much easier. You'd be so much happier. And I just feel like you just need to give yourself one more chance. I mean, you got nothing to lose.
What are your thoughts on moments of self-gratitude? Looking at yourself in the mirror and saying something positive about yourself.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
I remember this one experience I had. It's literally saved my life. And I do this every day. Is I do this meditation where it's essentially called stacking, where I'm literally stacking all these positive moments, memories, feelings from my life that is changing the way I feel and changing the way I behave. Because right now, if you kind of look at your life and you are in a negative state, you're thinking of everything that's gone wrong. And anything that does happen in the future that does come your way now, it's like, it's negative, right? Oh, I got stuck in traffic, and then my boss yelled at me because I was late, and then this happened, and then everything's negative, to at which point you find yourself stacking all this negative stuff. And essentially, that's how you're going to feel. So what I did is I just kind of did the exact opposite. Is I would not only imagine any moment from my life where I was grateful, moment where I felt confident, successful, felt excited, felt love, anything like that. But I would relive these moments as if I was really there again, experiencing it again. And I would stack all this stuff. It literally changed everything for me. After I did it for the first time, I was like in tears. I was like my eyes were like feeling swollen because I was crying so much because I felt so good about myself. Gratitude is like probably like a key to happiness. Yeah. It's just being so happy and so grateful for everything you've done at this point.
So you mentioned confidence. Confidence hits me hard, that word, because I've dealt with feeling confident and feeling zero confidence. And I still deal with that today. Mm-hmm. How much of the physical do you pull into your practice to try to help men as far as how you look and how that transfers into how you feel?
Heavily. So it's funny you say that, because at the time, years ago when I was involved in personal training, I was very technical. I mean, as a trainer, you have to be technical. You know this. Now it's not so technical, but that point is still emphasized. It's like, if you want to feel confident, do things that will give you reasons to feel confident, right? So something I learned is that competence breeds competence. So let's say, for example, you're in the gym and you're working out and then you're doing it consistently. Not only are you feeling better mentally, physically, but it's like you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh wow, okay, I look good. That's just a bonus. Yeah. But of the work you're doing to build that person is, I can't even put it into words. It's amazing for what you do for yourself. And not only on top of that, what I do personally, and this is another exercise that really helped me, legit save my life, is doing something physical to grow confidence. Is I do what's called getting into a peak state. Now, what I do is to get into a peak state, it's physical, but it's not like a workout. Like you're not spending an hour in the gym doing it, although everyone should go to the gym. But I legit, as soon as I wake up, I don't snooze my alarm, I turn it off, and I go into my office. Because if I did it in the bedroom, my fiance would kill me. Is I put in my headphones, and I legit put on the hypest song on my playlist as if I'm in like a nightclub in Ibiza, and I'm just jamming as if my life depended on it. Because honestly,
right after you woke up,
dude, literally, as soon as I wake up, I brush my teeth, let the dog out, go upstairs, put the AirPods in.
Coming hot.
That's how I start my day, dude. Every freaking day, I legit put on my headphones, listen to like Skrillex or some shit. I'm like in my office just, dancing, looking like an idiot, although it may sound too goofy or you might be too macho to do it, but I'm telling you, it will change your freaking life. Because after I'm done dancing to a single song for a couple of minutes, I'm feeling so different. And the reason why is because if we like kind of dial back time for a little bit when I was like laying in bed every day, I legit wasn't moving. Yeah. I was legit a vegetable. And as a result, it kind of sent a signal to my brain that made me feel worse. But I realized, and what I learned is that through movement, you are legit building and releasing serotonin in the brain, which is the mood boosting hormone. Yeah. It's like a magic pill for feeling happy.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a dopamine hit.
Yes.
To start your day.
Literally. And I start my day like that every single day. And I get moving. And not only does it put me in a better state, but it puts me in a state of mental clarity where I can make better decisions. And then from better decisions, how do you think that's going to impact my life?
Yeah, I mean, so that serotonin, dopamine, starting your day like that, that's just like waking up and saying something positive. If you wake up and you say, I'm thankful for my family, I'm thankful for whatever, how can you get out of bed and then just be negative and hate life after starting your day on such a positive note? Same thing goes for you. Mm-hmm. You wake up, you listen to your techno, dancing around your office for a couple minutes. Can you imagine walking out of your office and saying to your fiance, this fucking weather sucks? Like, it just doesn't compute.
No, yes, literally. It's like the example I like to say is like, have you ever seen somebody angry who's dancing at the same time? Like, there's nobody who is a pissed off dancer. Like, God damn it, this fucking shit. Like,
I want to see it if it's out there. Like, I'm gonna go searching for videos.
If it is, like, I'll be surprised. Yeah. But like, after you do that, I think, and it's so funny because I write it in my journal as soon as I'm done. Is like, I feel like I'm at my normal state, like my higher self. Today, I'm not lying. I wrote one sentence in my journal this morning. When I woke up, after I did my whole morning routine, I wrote, I'm going to change the fucking world. I literally wrote that in my journal. Like,
yeah, buddy.
It's just, when you feel that good, when you feel that grateful, when you feel that powerful, when it's essentially you're connecting to your higher self.
Yeah.
You're like, nothing else matters. Nothing material matters. It's just like, you're like on this other level, man.
So everyone has their own technique for feeling better, right? You dance in your office. Not everybody has to go dancing in their office to skill recs after they see this. Some people exercise. Some people turn to religion. Some people meditate. Some people do yoga. Everyone has their own, I don't want to say coping mechanism, but self-help technique.
Yeah.
Right? And they're all correct. They're all good if they work for you. There's no wrong way to work on your mental health, right?
I don't think there is. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You know what I mean? It's like, if it works for you, go for it.
That's what
like,
I said. There's no wrong way to drink a bourbon, Carlo. There's
Dude,
just
if,
not.
If that shit isn't full circle, I don't know what.
Was that amazing?
That is amazing. Did you plan that?
No, I'm not that good. Or am I?
I love that, dude. Oh, that's good. I really like that. That's really good. Honestly, I mean, you're right. Like, there isn't just one way. If it doesn't work, like at the time, therapy didn't work for me. I found something different. But therapy might work for somebody, or medications might work for somebody. I didn't opt for medication, but it might help somebody. But then again, it might not.
Yep.
If you just give yourself some grace, give yourself some love, try something different, and give yourself one more time.
You said that magical 3-letter word, try.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta try.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Thank yourself later.
Yeah. Wow, this has been deep. I feel like kind of healed and a little more gooey inside right now. So as part of the show, we arm wrestle.
Okay.
So we're gonna arm wrestle. You said you're a personal trainer, so I expect nothing but high performance from you. I'm gonna ask you a question while we do this.
Yeah.
This is like my version of Hot Ones.
Okay.
Okay. You can start whenever you're ready. You got a strong grip, buddy. Go ahead. Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
So you mentioned that example of someone talking to their 8-year-old self.
Mm-hmm.
If you could talk to the 8-year-old Carlo, what would you say to him?
Keep going. It's
Yeah.
gonna get better.
Yeah.
And you're gonna change the fucking world.
My man.
I was trying so fucking hard.
Full disclaimer. Wait till you see. So this is going to be in the future. But the episode with Drew, episode 17. Tune into that one. Our arm wrestling match went on for, I'd say, 2 minutes straight. We had to stop because I thought the table was going to break. He's a barber.
Uh-huh.
He's, 10, 12 years younger than me. That's not important. But he's a strong dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like he admitted he used steroids and stuff back in the day, and he doesn't anymore. But he gave me a run for my money.
Really?
I've never lost on the podcast yet. If we would have kept going, who knows what would have happened. But he could have beat me. But so Chelsea, I'm gonna card all of these references I have to these past episodes. She said, if I lose, the guest gets to pick a bottle of bourbon to take home with them as a prize for winning.
Oh wow. Okay.
Good idea?
It's a pretty good deal.
I don't like that idea, but I think it's fair.
I don't think you'll lose very often though.
There's so I have some bodybuilders coming on.
Okay.
Not that bodybuilders are all super strong, but
Yeah.
typically it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I got some big boys coming on here, and I'm actually scared.
Might need 2 stools.
It's going to be, I'm definitely up for a challenge, but I could be losing some of my collection here really
After
soon.
you lose like 3 bottles, make sure you hide your good stuff though. Like put your stuff like in like the safe.
I'll put like the fireball. It's just going to be shelves full of fireball. Here, take
Put your sangria or like your sambuca up there. Like
stuff that's not even bourbon.
yeah.
Well, Carla, I really appreciate you coming. Again, you came from Virginia, so it's an honor having you. Do you have any questions for me before we close out?
Yeah. How do you define success?
Success is different for everybody. Success for me, like, you want to know what success means to me specifically?
Yeah.
I'd say providing for my family is first and foremost, which I do. So I feel like I've succeeded. Success doesn't have to be financial, right? Or material.
No.
I think a big part of success is feeling fulfilled, that I am fulfilled. I'm not quite there because I have a lot of goals, not expectations. I have a lot of goals. This is one of them. You said you want to change the fucking world? So do I. So there's two of us that want to change the world. My job's never done. I'm always finding ways to improve myself, finding new things to learn, hobbies, entrepreneurial type stuff, starting a podcast. Who knew I had time for this?
Yeah.
You make the time, right? This is something I wanted to do to help others. So you sitting there talking to the world, you're going to help at least one person. That's why this podcast exists, is to help people, because someone watching is going to resonate with your story. Someone watching is going to be in that darkness that you were in one day, and you are the light for them. Success. We've succeeded. We've helped one person. What did you say you wanted to do ever since you were a kid? You wanted to help people. I'm the same way, man.
I love that.
That's why I have personal training business. That's why I have this podcast. So
everyone should listen to this podcast, by the way. Everyone.
Joe Rogan, where are you at, man?
Yeah, bro.
I'm the next Joe Rogan. But anyway, in all seriousness, Carlo, like success, I think if I had to define it, it's the willingness to continue to learn.
That's good. I like that.
I don't, and I've used this analogy before. I'm not a cruise control person. I'm never going to be satisfied going 55 on the freeway. I'm going to fucking floor it eventually. That's just my mentality. That's my constant drive for improvement. I know that was a long-winded answer to your question, but
that's a great answer.
But yeah, I mean, some people are perfectly content in their monotonous, no offense, mediocre, structured, no excitement routine life. Yeah. And that's fine. If that works for you, it's not me to determine that that's right or wrong. That's not me, man. And I found myself disconnecting I found myself disconnecting from those who don't have that same mentality.
Yeah.
And connecting with those who do. I'm starting to kind of weed out my social circles a little bit. I don't want to get pulled down by those who don't have, I don't want to say the same goals as I do, because that's completely discriminating and shitty to say. But I'm not going to be attracted to those who are the cruise control people.
Exactly.
I'm just not.
I'm the exact same way. It's you don't have to want to be this, podcaster, this influencer, this coach like me. But as long as you see my vision and you believe in me and you're supporting me 100% of the way, then okay. But if you legit are just shitting on me all the time, like, I don't have time for you. Like, get out. Like, like, bye-bye. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I would rather have people in my corner that are supportive, that are adding to my life versus subtracting. And if you add value to me, perfect. There's a reason why you're here. You know what I mean? But if you are just completely trying to take me down, even if you don't even realize it, you're just thinking this is a pipe dream and only 1 in a million people can succeed in this, and like okay, watch me. Yeah. And I'm not doing it just out of spite. I'm doing it because I know this is what I'm destined to do. You know what I mean? It's like, if you can add value to my life, then what are you here for? Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because there's going to be someone watching, and if you're that person, I'm watching you, that are going to be hating on you because of your positivity, because of your drive.
Yeah. Oh, I already know people who hate on me.
And you know what? Having haters is a sign of success.
Yeah.
I had a few comments come in on one of my videos, and I'm like, if you're spending the time to write a nasty comment, pat myself on the back. I've succeeded, right? But yeah, there's going to be people watching you in your smile, in your positive outlook. They're going to be like, they're going to think you're fake. They're going to think, this is an act. because they're jealous.
Yeah.
Because they don't feel as good as you feel. Don't hate on someone who is living their best life, because you're a shitty person if you do.
And one thing I learned, and I learned this from Gary Vee when I watched one of his videos, is like, if somebody legit takes the time, the most precious asset in the world, time, and they spend that time to write a nasty comment, that's a fucking loser. But not only that, though, that's what I see on the surface level, and I agree with that. But I want to look beyond that and pity that person, because this person must have it so bad, whether they know it or not, that they don't like themselves so much. Yeah. So they will go out of their way to try to bring someone else down just so they don't feel as shitty.
Yeah. They make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could keep going on, man, about how toxic social media is. And all this, but we're not going to. Well, dude, thanks again. If you have a public service announcement, you want to promote yourself and your business, I will link everything. Go ahead. Tell the world how you can help them.
Of course. So first and foremost, for anyone who's watching, I hope this episode did really help, because that's all I want to do is offer value and just be of service. That's why I'm here and why I want to do this, and to drink his bourbon. But if you are somebody who does have a lot of these limiting beliefs, this self-doubt, and you know you're meant for more, and you want to feel better, you want to unleash your true potential, perform at the highest level, whether it be in your professional life or your business, I would love to help. And if you want to dive deeper, I would love to give you a free strategy call. No strings attached. I just want to see how I can help you. And how you can find me, as I'm sure it's going to be in the show notes, go to my Instagram, but it's Carlo Taormina _life coach. Send me a DM with the words bourbon and barbells.
Yeah.
Just so I know you came from this podcast, because I would love to help you. And I really do want to serve you. And that's my little TED Talk.
I love it, man. Well, again, I know you already helped at least one person. So mission accomplished.
Yes, sir. Thanks you
again, dude.
So much.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate you.
And I will see you on the next episode of Barbells and Bourbon. Peace.
Fuck yeah.
Ah, man.
That's good.